So if you guys have been following me for any amount of time, I make a ton of content about Tor, and I'm largely pro Tor. I mean, I even have the onion tattooed on me. So anything I make is usually in support of it. Unfortunately, lately, there have been a lot of really bad setbacks with it, namely with them taking away a bunch of different things. It's happening again, and that's what this video is about. So Tor Browser is basically lying to you about your security settings. That security slider that's at the top that has the standard, the safer, and the safest options, it doesn't exactly work like you think it does. When you adjust it during a browsing session, for example, it fails to actually enable those critical protections like disabling JavaScript's JIT compilations. The interface changes, but the actual security doesn't actually activate until you reset the browser and restart it. This problem has actually been sitting in Tor's issue tracker for the last 11 months. The developers themselves admit that security is on the line, yet they've done absolutely nothing to fix it. They haven't talked about it. There's no warnings, no alerts. They don't discuss it on social media. Just basically a broken feature that gives users a false sense of security. And here's back to Thorin, what he says, who is a Tor developer.
And not only are we adding entropy that wasn't designed for, but we're misleading users as to their security. We could solve this by forcing a restart, but that then becomes a pain point.
When you're done watching this video, let me know in the comments if you knew about this before. I'd really like to know because it's so important to them. They don't think anyone uses it. They also didn't take a poll. They never asked anyone. So I'd like to know what you guys think. Put it in the comments. Let's see if user awareness suddenly becomes an actual priority once the ignorance is undeniable. And again, I'm not holding my breath. These are the people who like to remove features and lock people out of actually being able to edit the browser. This isn't the first time that the Tor project has actually pulled this. Remember when I did that last video of them removing the user agent spoofing, their response wasn't to actually fix anything. They just blamed everyone else. They blamed users for not reading through months of developer threads buried in their GitLab. Right, because we should all spend our free time scrolling through thousands of pages of developer conversations instead of having lives or jobs or families. Not all of us can work for the Tor project full time, right? Like, technically the information was public, but hiding critical security changes in obscure developer forums is exactly what corporations do when they bury important terms in the fine print. The overwhelming response to that video proved my point. Nobody knew about it. Over 40 people directly challenged the Tor project in their pinned comment. They pinned it for visibility, and they still got less likes than mine and even some of the other ones. And they couldn't be bothered to answer any of those 40 questions. And you don't hide a security regression, ignore user feedback, and then pretend silence means consent. Like they copy pasted the exact same non-answer on Twitter and YouTube and then vanished. And now they're doing it all over again, claiming a significant security issue isn't a priority because they personally aren't aware of how many people it affects or how many people specifically use that feature. They have tons of social media. They could poll them. They didn't even bother. When you change that security slider, there's absolutely no warning that you actually need to restart. Nothing tells you that critical protections like JIT disabling aren't actually active yet. You believe that you're fully protected because that's how it worked before. But in reality, the attack surface that you were trying to eliminate is still wide open. Now, it should be noted, like, this doesn't just compromise your security. It adds, to some degree, unnecessary fingerprinting data that undermines Tor core anti-fingerprinting purpose. Just like, I mean, you could add a simple restart prompt that tells people to restart if it didn't work, or I don't know, do something crazy like fix the actual problem. Like developers are now considering just outright removing the slider interface entirely instead of fixing the problem, just like they did with the spoofing. Then they want to replace it with a single safer by default setting and hide the safest mode in the about config, where most users will never find it. Sound familiar? It's the exact same playbook they used with OS spoofing in version 14.5. That feature made all Tor users appear to be in Windows, basically, which obviously reduced fingerprinting for people on other operating systems and less common operating systems. So if you are on Linux, you appeared to be on Windows. If you are on Mac, you appeared to be on Windows. Now you'll actually show up as on a Mac or on a Linux. But they scrapped it because maintaining it was too much work, apparently, despite the critical importance of anonymity and their whole slogan about fingerprinting and trying to keep everyone the same. Thorin, the same developer who decided users shouldn't be able to actually customize their web browser's security, said that,
in my opinion, if you require some safer options such as disabled JIT and Ion, then you probably need safest no JavaScript. Then honestly, I'd rather this was the only choice for users rather than have used compromised safer settings and be misled. All this is to say the slider has so many issues that we should seriously consider removing the entire thing. No slider anywhere. This then allows for per site settings, removes all ambiguity, stops users affecting change from about config, doesn't require a restart, no longer misleads anyone or puts their security at risk.
not really a shock that he said that because he did it with the last issue too. They bury it in the about config, then they wait a little bit, and then they take it out of that too, so you have no control over it. So let's actually go over how the slider actually works. It toggles several JavaScript engine features. JavaScript options baseline, JavaScript options Ion, JavaScript options asym.js. But these settings only apply at a browser startup. Changing them mid-session leaves your browser in a misleading state. Switching from standard to safer without restarting shows identical performance. Only after restarting does performance actually drop significantly, proving JIT is only disabled after the restart. The thing I really want to point out here is this isn't some like theoretical thing. JIT has been the vector for a ton of memory corruption and sandbox escape vulnerabilities. When users think they've disabled it, but haven't, they're really exposed to attacks that specifically they're trying to prevent. So for people with serious threat models and very resourceful adversaries, which is not like there's a good amount of people that actually have this issue, this absolutely could be life-threatening. So to make things worse, the security slider badge feature, which should actually warn you when settings have been customized, is completely broken. And that's another safety mechanism that's failing silently. But instead of actually addressing these very serious issues, the developers instead want to strip away user control, which is a repeat of exactly what happened with the whole spoofing thing. Their current plan is to simplify the interface while ignoring the needs of high-risk individuals who actually depend on Tor security with serious threat models. And this fits the pattern of what we've seen before. Users raising legitimate security concerns and the Tor project either ignoring them or burying the responses. This was seen in the last video when the Tor project responded and you guys actually commented to them and they just left everybody unseen. So until this is fixed properly and not just hidden behind a UI improvement, so the developers don't actually have to do anything, I would treat every security slider change that you make as non-functional until you actually restart the browser. That's the only real reliable way to ensure that your security settings actually take effect and but it's been like this for a while now. So the current situation, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. Changing security levels mid-session without restarting leaves critical protections inactive, while the interface tells you otherwise. It's and this is something they've known about. Like, and that's the thing that really aggravates me. And now they just want to cover it up with UI. It's really infuriating. But I mean, what we saw in the comments, how we saw them act, where they raised this weak counter of it's the user's fault, and then I responded, and then you guys, 40 of you all responded, and they just said nothing. Sadly, seems to be the Tor project's kind of standard operating procedure these days, unless it's during one of their videos where they're begging for funds. It seems to be like the only times, or they're promoting some agenda. It's just really, really sad to see, especially as a really long-term user who has the Tor project tattooed on him. Kind of invested in this, guys. Really sucks to see. But at the same time, like, open software should be open. We should be able to have these discussions and have these talks about these things and hope that the people who are developing these things hear this input and actually do something about it. And we know they do, because we can see on the ticket them even talking about articles that get written about what they're doing. So we know they're watching, and we see them comment, literally the Tor project comment on the last video. So we know that they actually watch this content. So we really hope that you guys give us the ability to spoof our headers if we want, even if you don't do it openly. If it's in the about config and we have access to that, we'd love to be able to modify our browser settings how we want. We'd also like it so that if we change our security levels, they're actually changed. And if they're not changed, there's a warning. I mean, I feel like asking for this is not really a huge major thing that we're asking of them. It doesn't seem that big. It should be taken into account. The fact that they haven't taken any of that into account, and they've just kind of had radio silence, and I don't know Thornton from a hole in the wall. I saw someone else comment, who I'm not going to call them out by name just because I'm not going to give him publicity because he's a moron. But I saw him comment and basically say that, you know, Thornton's this amazing developer, and Sam Bent's basically a moron YouTuber, which is funny because I don't consider myself actually a YouTuber. I mean, a lot of people do, so I'll say, yeah, I am. That's fine. But I don't actually consider myself a YouTuber. I'm not one of these kids who turned 16, grabbed a camera, and started making streams and streaming video games and all that crap. I did a lot of stuff before I did YouTube videos. So it's funny seeing people be like, oh, these idiot YouTubers. And it's like, dude, like, you can call me that if you want, but that's not the case at all. And it's interesting to see the reactions from people. I've made a ton of content, like I said when I started this video, about Tor. I definitely I love the Tor project. I think what they do is absolutely vital. It's absolutely needed, and it gives people a crazy ability. The ability to be anonymous, just the ability to be private nowadays, is so rare and hard to find. There's so many corrupt VPN providers. That's why you don't see me promote VPNs on this channel, and I don't like to promote VPNs on this channel, is because I'm not going to vouch for a provider because I haven't had the ability to see, do they rent out their servers, right? What's the physical OPSEC of the server room in Venezuela? I don't know any of these things. So I don't like to invest any trust into them unless it's for privacy. If it's for privacy and anonymity doesn't matter, okay, that's a totally different thing. But for anonymity, it's a no-go for me. Tor does allow you to have that. And that's why it's such a big deal when they do things like this and they take away the ability for users to make decisions for themselves. The ability for us to decide, do we want OS spoofing? Do we not want OS spoofing? Why do you have options that do nothing, that just give users a false sense of security? I mean, there's no way. And even if you're the like the most socially retarded developer has to know that a false sense of security is far worse than no security. Am I crazy? I mean, like, please tell me, like, if I'm nuts and I'm totally screwing this up. So I hope that they look at the feedback from the last video. I hope they look at whatever feedback's on this video. And again, like I said, guys, please let me know if you knew about this, because all these developers are like, well, we're not even sure how many people actually use it. So if you use the sliders, if you've ever used them, let them know in the comments. Like I said, it would be interesting to know. And then if you use them and you thought that you were good and then you realized later you weren't, let them know that too. I mean, I know I've definitely, because I've spun up temporary instances of the Tor browser on KSAM, and like I've set it to safest and hopped on a site and JavaScript is not disabled. I go in and file config, JavaScript, set it to false. And I don't think anything of it. I definitely didn't think to go hop in and go through 1,000+ threads of developer threads and read every page of every thread to see if it was actually broken and the actual browser was just lying to me the whole time. The least they could have done was a PSA. Like Tor Project, in the future, if you have a security feature that it's reasonable for people to assume that the security feature is a real feature because it's in the browser and it does absolutely nothing, please give us a PSA saying that it's a useless feature and it doesn't do anything and how to actually make it useful. That would be great. It shouldn't be up to some random dude on YouTube to have to discover this and then make a YouTube video about it, telling the rest of the community. I'm sure there's going to be more than 5 people who didn't know this. I didn't know it up until 2 days ago. So for me, it's completely unacceptable. Anyways, I'm ranting at this point. I digress. Thank you all for listening and watching to the end. You guys are awesome. I appreciate the likes. I appreciate the subscriptions and the comments. You guys are. I wish I had the time to. I would respond to every single one of you, but I just don't have the time. I have probably 70 videos that I have to do, and I have 5 that I have to edit right now, and I don't have. I can't do it. So I do what I can. But all of you are absolutely amazing. When I started this channel, I remember getting 10 subscribers and I was like, yeah, like, it's such a win. And now it's absolutely insane seeing that I get with some videos 1,000 subscribers. So you guys are all absolutely amazing. And thank you all for your support. Just the kind words alone is I don't know. It's more than I can actually do. I've always been like a kind of the guy in the background. So this position in front of the camera for me is extremely uncomfortable, but you guys make it comfortable. And you have no idea how much I appreciate that. So thank you all for watching. As always, I'll see you in the next video.